Hello YouTube, and this is Todd with Solid Shell Security, and I'm going to be introducing and kind of getting started on a new playlist in YouTube. I'm going to do a series on how to actually program in Python, actually teach the language. Originally I wanted to avoid this because there's a bunch of people on YouTube and all over the internet who do the same thing, such as the New Boston, or there's the I think the website's like learnpythonthehardway.com, and learn Python the hard way is, in my opinion, the best way to learn. But I've had a bunch of requests asking me if I could do a Python series of actually teaching the language. So I originally wanted to avoid it, like I said, because there's already a bunch of people out there who are doing this. However, I do feel like they don't always approach concepts, like the examples they use aren't always the best. So I'm going to try and use what, in my opinion, is the best way to do some of these concepts. If you're using Windows, I suggest you run a Linux environment to do this. In my opinion, and the opinion of a lot of really experienced programmers, is to program in Linux or some sort of Unix environment such as BSD or even Mac OS. I'll be honest with you, Mac OS is a pain, in my opinion, to set up a programming environment, but I somehow successfully did it. So one reason why I say that is with Linux, Python already comes, well, any kind of Unix distribution such as Linux, BSD, and Mac OS, Python already comes on the operating system. But if you're running Windows and you don't want to, screw up your computer or anything, the best thing I would advise is to run a VirtualBox, which is basically running a virtual operating system on your current operating system. It's free. You can download it here. Then you just go to, if you don't really want to spend time learning Unix, the best distribution, to be honest, would probably be Ubuntu. You go here, download Ubuntu, you put in the ISO, check out some tutorials with that. It's really simple to get set up and get going. So that's my recommendation, is use a Unix environment. But if you are headstrong about, no, I have Windows, I'm not going through all that trouble, then what you need to do is go to python.org. You need to download. I use 2.7. Most people I know use 2.7. It's still kind of like the industry standard, I guess you can say. There's not much difference between 2.7 and 3.3, but to follow on with my tutorials, you're probably going to need 2.7 because there are some syntax changes. Just come here, you download it, and then the next thing you have to do is set up your environment path, and I will be putting this link down in the area of the YouTube video. And basically what this does is it sets up the environment path, so that way whenever you open command prompt to run your commands, it invokes the Python interpreter. So it's actually really simple, especially using the set command. So, whenever you're doing programming, don't get upset, but not everything's point and click. And I just got a Skype message that I'm going to ignore. So, once you have done all of that, I'm going to go ahead and get started on our first program. First things first, I should probably do is create a folder for all of this. Don't do that to me. New folder, and this would be a good thing for you guys to do, is to have a folder for all of your tutorial stuff, so that way you don't have cluttered, you know where it's at. So that's what I'm going to do. Alright, so I've got idle open. And if you're running Windows, usually it sets up Python in the C drive, as Python 27. You go in there and it should say like idle. You click that up, you get what's called the Python shell. This is the Python shell. I'm not going to be doing a whole lot in it because I really don't like using it. But what the Python shell does is you put in code and it executes it. So y equals 4, z equals y plus 2, print z. So it just kind of really quickly allows you to run code, which the only time I really use the Python shell is whenever I'm doing, like whenever I'm kind of prototyping code or I'm playing with a new library. I'll use it to play with a new library just to kind of get a gist of how things work. But usually what I do is I use, not really sure what you would call it, but it's like a little built-in IDE, which is an integrated development environment, which are kind of nice to use. You go to File, New Window, and you get this. I'm not going to need this. One thing I would suggest, if you have like Notepad, use that. Avoid IDEs that automatically fill in code for you. The main thing you want is syntax highlighting, which means if you notice whenever I put print, it turns it yellow. That's the only thing you need, and my suggestion is just stick with like Notepad or something like this little IDE that idle gives you, because what happens is you start getting lazy at programming. Let me find my example code runner. It's nice. I used to like using this, especially whenever I was programming in C, but as you can see, it automatically fills in the syntax. That's not preferable for someone who's brand new to programming, because then you really don't embed the syntax, and that's the main purpose of learning to program, is learning the syntax. Once you learn how a proper program should be set up, then the world is open for you to learn that programming language. So here we go. Our first program is traditionally going to be the hello world. Very simple. Print hello world. We're going to save this. Whenever you save it, you go desktop. Whenever you save it, you need to save it as name of file .py, so it needs that .py extension. And pretty much in every operating system, you just need to navigate to the folder where it's at. So it's underneath desktop, underneath Python tuts, and then we're going to type in Python, which will say, okay, computer. We're going to need the Python interpreter, and then we're going to give it the argument of hello.py. Bam. That's it.